I want to thank you for joining me again as we continue on with our series, From Other to One Another, our daily devotional series that accompanying our Sunday morning sermon series. I want to thank you for joining us for that as we explore the richness of our relationships with one another. As Christians, we are called to disrobe so that we can place on new clothes. In Ephesians chapter 4, we're called to disrobe from anger and malice, slander, clamor, bitterness and wrath with one another. That we're called to take those things off so that we can place kindness on one another. We're called to be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another just as God in Christ forgave you. Be kind to one another. That runs in total opposition to what I am so often hearing nowadays of how we are called to relate to one another. So much of what I witness today is be rude to one another, be condescending to one another, speak your mind to one another no matter how wounding it might be. Just tear into each other. Just be provocative and destructive in how you speak to one another. If you're angry, just let it out. If you're bitter, just let that root grow. Go around, spread rumors about one another. Tell other people of what you're feeling and how you're thinking, and no matter how it may wound or harm the person that you're talking about. Have you seen that? Have you witnessed that? I mean, it only takes about 5 minutes of online presence to see that happening nowadays, where our biggest concern is how do we rake each other over the coals? I think that that's the biggest tragedy that has occurred, the biggest fault of the social networking, is that it's given so many people an opportunity to just right off the cuff, without taking time to think about it, without taking time to think about the wounds that it may inflict, for us to just let each other have it. Paul says that's got to go. That's part of the old life. That needs to be, we need to disrobe of those kind of things so that we can robe ourselves in the kindness that reflects God's heart. In Romans chapter 2, verse 4, he talks about the kindness that God has lavishly placed upon us, and talks about our grace in terms of God's kindness. And we are to have the same kindness towards one another, a lavish blessing, a lavish grace towards one another. The tender-hearted has the idea of that feeling that expresses itself in graciousness towards each other. When you talk not just to one another, but of one another, are your words salted with the old man? Those things that need to be removed? The anger, the bitterness, the wrath, the rage, the slander? Or are they lavishly flavored with the kindness, the tender-heartedness of God? that says, I understand what you're like. I know what you've gone through. I know how you have displeased me. But I still love you. And I'm still here for you. Which describes your words towards one another.